Good morning and welcome to the January 24th, 2025 edition of the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. Today, we are honored to have Mike Coffey as our special presentation to talk about the legal and practical background check considerations. This is the 14th or 15th year in a row he has spoken at this group, so we really appreciate his dedication. Please note that this is being recorded, and by attending, you consent to have your name and picture appear, although the Zoom chat does not appear in the recording. While Jeff Morris is recuperating, Walt Glass and I are interim leaders of the group. Hi, my name is Matt. Walt.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Walt Glass. Glad you're here today with us.
As a reminder, Jeff Morris is still recuperating, but doing really well. Last time I heard, he might be back full-time sometime in February. So we're looking forward to that. He created this way back when, and he's got a couple websites, which I have the pleasure of moderating for him. And he's written a book, Your Job Search, and it's very good. I have a copy. I've read it. Check it out. He's also a member of the PIC group. All right. Just a reminder, this is a networking event, even if you're online. Nice to see your smiling face. So turn on your video if you've done your hair. Our agenda, as usual, success stories, job leads, 30-second introductions, interview success workshop, PIC crew, tip of the week, and then the main event, who's our speaker, who's going to join us online today. Success stories. Has anyone landed? I don't see any donuts in the room. Anyone online? Any great interviews? I had one yesterday. Perfect fit. Don't love it. Little bit too much sales, but it might work out. It's a remote position. They're based in Manhattan. I'd be building a team to provide due diligence services specifically for private equity companies, and they have an MSP. They've gobbled up 5 of them, and they're merging them. And I have some M&A in my background as well, so I can help them with that as well. Anyone else? Patty, you said you had 4 in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I actually had 3 this week. I have another one today, later this morning, and it's a final round interview. I had a final round interview yesterday. So, we'll see what happens. But ever since the beginning of the year, I've had 3 interviews a week with different companies. And basically, I think I have 4 in the pipeline right now.
That's fantastic. I've seen an uptick in activity as well. So hopefully you guys have seen it as well.
I had maybe 4 in the last 3 weeks or so. Yesterday, no, the day before I had 1, Matt. And the interesting thing, I guess, to share with everyone is that this was I'm trying to stay in DFW, but this was a position in Denver for an SVP Finance FP&A role. And besides the interviews, I had to complete some surveys, and the one was I'd never heard of this. It's called the Watson Glaser Critical Thinking Appraisal, and it is I think once I kind of investigated and Googled it and did some practice tests. It's used for lawyers mostly, and it's used in the UK. But it's an interesting one, little tough, hard to tell. So there's 5 sections, and then there was some cognitive ability tests that were typical, like spatial and kind of numbers, percentages type thing. That's mostly that I had seen before, or at least versions of it. But I'm just sharing it because you might encounter in some cases, some appraisals that you'll have to complete. And of course, in this one, I tried, doing a couple of tests before doing the real one. But it did say that practice makes you get better rates, and so anyway, waiting for that one as well.
Good.
So
Good.
following on what Miguel said, I had case interviews for mine. So in the one that I had last week, I had to go into it. I didn't know what it was going to be. They told me what it was going to be in the first 5 minutes. I had 45 minutes to prepare a presentation, 10 minutes to present.
Wow.
So yeah. So
Wow.
ask me if you have any questions about case interviews because I've done them.
Wow. I'm surprised they gave you so little time to prepare.
That's how they roll.
Duty.
So I had a couple of phone screens in the last week. I actually had an in-person interview for the first time in a long time, which sounds very promising. I'll know a little bit more information next week. But yes, I've noticed kind of an uptick in hits. So I'm very happy.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing. Margaret.
I had an interview on site yesterday. Looks very good. My only doubt is that it is a contract position. And I wish it were full-time, but it would be just fantastic experience for me. It's in the Dallas area and we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, good luck. There's a lot of contract opportunities that turn into full-time. So I would definitely consider that.
That's what I'm hoping.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
I did an interview yesterday with T-Mobile. I was informed when I tried to close the deal, like we've been trained to do, that I was one of 9 candidates, but it was a senior enterprise account executive, which were giving some very large corporate clients that they wanted to expand services that they were selling into. And then, of course, do what I did in the days when I was with First Data, targeting large national clients to acquire also that take time. So we'll continue to play through it. And like you have mentioned, Margaret, I had some takeaway homework they asked me to do, a little project. So I'll finish that up and have it sent to them by the end of the day tomorrow.
Awesome. Sounds promising. Good luck.
T-Mobile's good. Good. They tend to hold people. So I'd love to get a job soon.
That's great. I wish I could use T-Mobile. It doesn't work at my house in the middle of North Dallas, Richardson, for some reason. So I have to stick with AT&T.
Well, they told me when I asked stuff like that, because I mentioned my airport area issues. They said, well, we're in the process of updating our towers even further due to high usage here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
I was gonna say
So-
T-Mobile has a lot of dead areas, and the thing is, they've been a problem for 20 years. I mean, they're just getting to upgrade now.
Yeah, well, they're just now starting to realize how critical it is in the competitive marketplace, especially if they want to really fully deploy beyond, point-to-point talking and things, but start to get into these companies where they're going to be deployed at, like, for instance, in a manufacturing environment where their equipment using wireless to update their software and for keeping things, if they have problems, being able to fix things. So you got to have a dependable network. So they're very aware of it, but it comes down to the dollars and cents. So saw the same thing when I was at Verizon. So, but I have hope. So they tried to encourage me to say, don't worry, we'll take care of stuff. So who knows? Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, good discussion. Job leads. Do we have any of our recruiters today? Catalyst or Thomas Edwards? All right. Thomas Edwards had 3 people at Southlake yesterday. They came in force. I think they're up over 80 positions on their website. So go to thomasedwardsgroup.com, check it out. In the previous follow-ups, you'll find the contact information that I've, not last week, they weren't here, but the week before, so 2 weeks ago, in the follow-up email from this meeting, you'll find their contact information if you want to reach out. Of course, you want to mention this meeting and they'll say, oh yeah, we were there. All right, introductions. If you are online, please put in the Zoom chat, your name, the position you're looking for, email, LinkedIn, city, phone, 2 or 3 target companies and the companies that you have connection at to help everybody else. For those in the room, if you will come up, form a line in front of the laptop. Walt, if you will bring us a microphone, we will get everybody introduced.
Military would say, finish what? Hold the line. Thank you. Come on down.
Good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Belzil. I'm seeking a VP or senior director role in product management or analytics. So I'm looking for contacts at newer companies, Synchrony Financial or JP Morgan Chase. So I have contacts at Walmart, Circana, and Epsilon. So my name is Mike Belzil.
Thank you, Mike.
My name is Bruce Crossman, and I'm looking for a project program manager in IT. I don't know about target companies, but yeah, my name is Bruce Crossman.
Is this your first time here? Thank you. We appreciate you coming. We are going to go to lunch after if you want to stick around.
Good morning. Good to see you. Congratulations on the interviews, people. That's wonderful.
Yeah, you might want to back up.
Well, I think my neck is good enough.
No, back up a little bit.
Hey, I'm 6'6". Give me a break.
There you go.
Trying to buy clothes.
There you go.
My name, the little guy out there in the picture, my name is Phil Elsner. I'm a PMP credentialed project manager with several years of experience in several industries, degrees in biomedical sciences, and would like to be managing projects in the health world before it goes away. If I were able to give you some contacts now, I'd be happy to share them. But as I've said many times, the people I've used to work with are probably either retired or dead. So I'm not going to be able to help a whole lot here. I'm a serial volunteer, including working with Jeff and running this group for a long time. Lots of appreciation to Walt and Matt for keeping it going. My name is Phil Elsner.
Thank you, Phil.
Good morning, my name is Michael Garber. I'm an information technology program manager with experience in cybersecurity, cloud services, and telecommunications. I have contacts at IBM, Kyndryl, Verizon. My name is Michael Garber.
Michael, you part of the South Lake Google group?
Yes,
Okay, so you've seen the posts this week
I have.
in your area? Okay, great. Good morning.
Good. My name is Kimberly Taylor. I'm in property management and I'm looking for an assistant property manager role. I don't have any contact companies and then I have connections at Chase Bank. Thanks. And again, my name is Kimberly Taylor.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Hi, I'm Julie Fleming and I'm looking for a role either as a controller or VP of finance. I don't have a specific target company right now. Actually, I do have one. Ellison Lewis, which is an actuarial firm, if anyone knows anyone there. And as for my contacts with affected companies,
What was your last company?
I was a family office and it's actually closing down.
And before that?
Before that, Whitley Penn.
There you go.
And Co-Resnick. So yeah, I have contacts at Whitley Penn and Co-Resnick. Yeah, my name is Julie Fleming.
Perfect. Julie, is this your first time?
This is my first time here and
Welcome.
I was at South Lake yesterday, so I saw you and I saw you. So,
Welcome.
yeah.
Marshall Galea, just recently on the market. And so I'm looking for a supply chain position, either in distribution or transportation. Transportation is where I'm the strongest, anything from air, truck, ocean, it doesn't matter. Target companies I would like to look at is Raytheon. It's really the only one right now, but I'm kind of open and kind of shotgunning at this point.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the room? Okay, online. Walt, if you would give me a hand.
I can indeed, and is anybody in the room also online? Okay. We'll already covered them. Yeah, we've had double introductions for doing this well. Okay, Patty, you're online. Let's start with you.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Patty Bashy, and I'm looking for an account director role, senior customer success manager role at a marketing research company. I need contacts at Ipsos, Mintel, and Sago, and I have contacts at Nielsen and Kantar. My name is Patty Bashy.
And now we've got several people to go through, so 10 to 12, no more than 15 seconds, introductions would be great. David.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is David. I'm an IT support analyst. I'm looking for a role at the following companies: American Airlines, Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, Caterpillar, and CoreLogic. My name is David.
David, are you on the South Lake Google group?
Yes, I am.
Okay, there was a job for you this week.
Oh, I'll go after it then. Thank
Definitely check it out.
Okay, thank you, David. Jeffrey.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Jeff Aubert. I'm a customer-facing technical sales engineer looking for sales engineering, technical account manager type roles. I built customer relationships to pre and post sales engagements. My target companies are Worth Electronic and Future Electronics and Hatch. I'm Jeff Aubert. Thank you.
Jeffrey. Margaret.
I am Margaret Martinez, and I am looking for a role as a training and development specialist. I am looking for contacts at Energy Transfer in Dallas, and I have contacts at the City of Carrollton, Trinity River Authority, and Genpact. My name is Margaret Martinez.
Watson.
Is that your attempt at an English accent?
Yeah, pretty lousy. I can't get Southern out of my voice.
Were you talking about me, Walt?
Thanks, Peter. I appreciate that. Yeah, everybody have a good joke on Walt. Yes.
You're up, Peter. 10-second
Oh,
interview.
sorry, it was a little bit muffled and I wasn't sure what was being said. Good morning, everybody. Peter Watson, Project Services Delivery Manager in Plano, looking for those roles remotely or Plano and surrounding cities. Some travel is fine. I have contacts at Tempest Telecom, Verizon, Ericsson, and I put in the chat the couple of small companies I'm looking for contacts at. Peter Watson.
By the way, for those that are new, make sure that you give me your email address on the sign-in sheet. I send a follow-up email every week that includes a link to this recording, as well as a copy of the chat, so that you can network with the people that are online today.
Thank you, Peter. We'll go on to Anthony. Hope you're recovering rapidly, Anthony.
Everyone, my name is Anthony Archery. I'm a senior retail operationist. I help company drive robust sales and profit at the same time, reduce costs. Anthony Archery. Yes, I'm coming along very well.
Sounds good.
Looking forward to being back very soon.
If you get a job before before you're fully recovered to come back in person, that's okay.
With donuts.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
David Watrous.
Good morning, all. My name is David Watrous. I'm looking for jobs as a senior account executive or more likely sales manager. I have contacts at Spectrum, where I worked for 7 years. And I'm looking for contacts currently within Belo, Victory Plus, Suez Power, and I'd like to get into JP Morgan, the private banking group, especially. And again, my name is David Watrous. Thank you all.
Steve Rowan. Steve, you're showing as your name is Donnie. I hope she gave you permission to use her name.
Thank you. It's a little bit hard. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo in the audio today.
Steve Rowan.
Can you hear me?
Got it.
Okay. It's been a while getting on this morning. I'm a retired .NET developer. I'm not really looking for anything. I'm retired, but I like to come to these meetings and on Friday. So my name is Steve Rowan.
AKA Dottie.
Yeah, tell
AKA Dottie, yeah.
Yeah.
Her Zoom people get upset if she comes in as me. So I have to come in as her.
Understand. Thank you for being here.
Hi, good morning. My name is Graciela Custer. I have a part-time digital marketing position, and in the near future, I'll be seeking a full-time digital marketing position, remote or in person. And I just wanted to hop on and say hi. My name is Graciela Custer. Thank you.
Thanks, Graciela. Jody.
Good morning, Jody Dahlberg. I'm an IT leader that builds systems aligning technology with business expectations. I've built systems for small and large companies, all reducing costs and improving reliability. And I leverage technology to improve processes, develop teams, and deliver exceptional customer service. I have contacts in retail, construction engineering, and IT. Jody Dahlberg.
Thanks, Jody. Kathy Dixon.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kathy Dixon. I'm a senior technical writer with extensive experience documenting hardware, application, and system software, and processes and procedures. I am industry agnostic. My most recent experience is in fuel and convenience store industry with 7-Eleven and Circle K. And I have contacts in the PM groups of both of those companies, but not any other groups. My experience is mostly with hardware and software industry. Kathy Dixon, senior tech writer.
Thanks, Kathy. Miguel.
Good morning, everyone. Miguel Castillo, looking for a VP or a director finance, mostly in the FP&A space. Need contacts at Honeywell, Toyota. Have contacts at American Airlines and Amazon. And my name is Miguel Castillo. Morning.
Thank you, Miguel. Matt, just to let you know, Mike just joined us.
Great.
Online.
All right.
We'll talk to him in a minute. Okay, Mitch.
Mitch Birchfield, IT support technician, 20 plus years from anywhere from tier 1 to tier 3 enterprise support, various industries, manufacturing, banking, government. Just looking for something in that type of position. Don't really have any target companies. Just looking for a job. Again, Mitch Birchfield.
Sir, Rhonda.
Good morning. I'm Rhonda Sellers. I'm a construction specifications writer for architects. I'm either between jobs or retired. My name is Rhonda Sellers.
Rosina.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rosina Gallman, and I'm your Career Tip of the Week host. I'm looking for a position as a senior talent acquisition business partner or senior recruiter position. I need contacts at Goldman Sachs, Deloitte, Delta Dental, Unum Dental, MetLife, Walmart, USAA, ADP, and TIAA. I have contacts at a variety of different industries, and so I will reach out to those directly. And again, my name is Rosina Gallman, Senior Talent Acquisition Business Partner or Senior Recruiter. Thanks.
Okay, to see you in a few minutes. Let's see, Roshan.
Hello, good morning all. I'm Roshan Lewis, Product Management VP with expertise in FinTech, financial services, fraud prevention solutions. I'm seeking similar roles, which is within the senior product management space, VP director, senior director roles. My target industry being payments, FinTech, and software solutions, even the FinTech space. I'm requesting some contacts at Amex, Alchemy, Wex, and Walmart for this week. I have contacts at MasterCard, and I'll put my information in the chat. Again, my name is Roshan Lewis. Happy to be here. Good morning.
You, Scott Boudreau.
Roshan, did you hear that Anthony Autry has some contacts at Walmart?
I may have joined a little late.
Okay.
I'll
Reach
reach
out
out.
to Anthony Autry.
Okay.
He's online as well.
All right.
Might be able to help you out.
Thank you so much.
Okay, back to Mr. Boudreau.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Scott Boudreau, Certified Planning, Inventory Management. Looking for a supply chain job in central New Jersey or remotely, specializing in inventory control or production planning. If it has a part number, I can manage it. If it doesn't, I'll create one. Scott Boudreau.
So other Scott Cunningham.
I'm unable to turn on the video or I'll freeze. My name is Scott Cunningham. I'm looking for a global security manager role. Security is physical security, not cyber. My target companies I have yet to define, but it'll be in the manufacturing space. I have contacts at John Deere. Again, my name is Scott Cunningham. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Tim.
Morning, everyone. My name is Tim Kluge. I'm an information security analyst. The companies I'd like to have a contact at would be Toyota and Capital One. I have contacts at PepsiCo. Again, my name's Tim Kluge. Thank you.
Thank you. Vitaly. Vitaly. Mike Bazile.
He's in the room.
He's in the room, so you're online too. All right, did I miss anyone? Okay, I think we got everyone.
This is Michael. I signed in late.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Michael Wilk. I'm looking for a senior or lead software systems and program quality engineer position. I have extensive experience in aerospace and defense, ensuring quality product development, process compliance, and customer satisfaction. My target companies are Collins Aerospace, Sierra Nevada Corporation, DRS, and DQS. I'm a veteran with top secret clearance. My name is Michael Wilk. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Matt, you're next.
Good morning. My name is Matt Keelan. I'm an IT VP or director, currently looking at Wezom, W-E-Z-O-M, based in Ukraine. Anybody? I know, long shot. Thank you, Matt Keelan. All right. Walt.
My name's Walt Glass, and I also help with job seekers and their interviewing skills. So I have the interview success workshop. So what is the interview success workshop all about? Well, it's free, doesn't cost you anything. It's a learning interview. It's not a mock interview. And we want to learn how to sell. We want to move from a responding mindset to a selling mindset. And so what are we selling? It's who we are, what we do, and how we help. If you agree with those 3 items, then the workshop is for you. You have to be registered to attend. That is a QR code that will start an email to my Yahoo email address so that you can register and schedule. This is where we talk about options and strategies and structures. And so by selling, I am and do I help, we will differentiate ourselves very positively, and we'll have a successful interview defined as one where we have done a good job of selling those 3 items in the process. So you do get an interview video. You're going to get a handout with a video that goes over the handout, which is about an hour long itself, and some more files and things that usually like thank you notes and items about questions and that sort of thing. We hold it on Tuesdays, 9 to 11 Central Time. I only do 1 or 2 participants at a time on Zoom. So if you want to know more details, see my LinkedIn About section. They'll give you some more details about that. We look forward to having you sign up. Come on down. And we call it Learning Without Squirming. I'll have to postpone the poem for a little while. I want to move forward. Let's go ahead with the next item.
All right. You want to talk about the pit crew?
Okay, the pit crew. What is the Dallas pit crew? Well, it is a formal mock interview practice. It's held at the Christ United Methodist Church. If you can be in person, it will be in person on the first, second, third, and fifth Wednesdays. We do anywhere. We sometimes have 3 or 4 different interviews going on simultaneously. Panelists are people who have hired people in the past and even fired people in the past. They're all volunteers to do that. There's some in the room here today that have been panelists before. It's going to be online on the 4th Wednesdays of the month, and that's primarily to allow people that are outside the DFW area to be interviewed as candidates. You can be an observer at either online or in person to these interviews, so you can watch those and also participate in feedback. It's a great learning experience. And so to register, or to request to be a candidate, just send an email to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. It's on the slide, and say, here's my resume, here's a job description, I'd like to get in. You can also go to www.dallaspitcrew.com and get a lot more information, details, and resources as well. So I suggest you learn how to sell and then you start practicing. Practice early and practice often is the pit crew's motto.
Thank you, Walt. All right, Rosanna, you're up.
Thank you. All right. Good morning again, everyone. So this week's career tip of the week is how to create an ATS-friendly resume in 2025. And the reason why this is chosen for this week is while you're all networking viciously to get into a company or find a contact, you can also apply directly to a job that's posted, but you still need to be seen because the competition is still very high. And in order to be seen in an applicant tracking system, you need to have an ATS-friendly resume. So how to create an ATS-friendly resume in 2025. The article that has been selected is by JobScan, and it's about 20 pages for the one that Matt's going to be sending out. But when you go right to the URL, basically this article is going to outline steps to create a resume that can be effectively read and parsed by an applicant tracking system, which is crucial for you getting noticed by employers in today's market. So why is an ATS-friendly resume necessary? Well, first, ATS dominates job applications. Most companies use ATS software to screen resumes, filtering out those that don't meet specific criteria. And then second, it's an increased visibility. An ATS-friendly resume increases your chances of your application reaching a human recruiter by ensuring the software can accurately read and understand your qualifications. Now, creating an ATS compliant resume, there are 6 key steps. First, the job title match. Include the exact job title from the job description in your resume, headline. An example, marketing automation specialist with 8 years of experience. And JobScan data shows a 3.5 times higher interview rate when using the exact job title match. Second, keyword optimization. Identify and incorporate relevant keywords from the job description throughout your resume. And you want to use long form keywords such as customer relationship management and acronyms such as CRM. And then avoid keyword stuffing. Use keywords naturally and contextually. Third, precise keyword usage. Use keywords exactly as they appear in the job description to ensure accurate ATS recognition. And then an example would be use leadership experience instead of simply listing leadership roles. Fourth, ATS-friendly format. You want to use a chronological format, and that's where you list work experience in reverse chronological chronological order, which is the most recent first. And then you want to have clear formatting. You want to use simple, clear language. Choose a professional font such as Arial, Calibri, or Times New Roman. You want to use consistent font sizes and margins. Format your dates consistently. And then you want to utilize bolds, italics, and bullet points sparingly. Fifth, you want easy scannability. Use concise and impactful language. Structure your resume with clear headings and subheadings. And then you want to use bullets to highlight key accomplishments and responsibilities. And sixth, you want to avoid formatting issues. No headers and footers, because that can interfere with the ATS parsing. No graphics or images, because that may confuse the ATS. And then simple section headings. Use standard headings like work experience and education. So what is an ATS? An applicant tracking system. It's an automated screening, which is it uses ATS software, which automates the initial stages of the hiring process. It's keyword based search. So the hiring managers use keywords to search the ATS database for relevant candidates. And then it's data-driven selection. So the ATS helps employers efficiently filter through a large volume of applications. Now, how to know if your resume is ATS friendly? Use JobScan's resume scanner, and you can analyze your resume against a specific job description to identify areas for improvement. And then you can also score and use it for recommendations. The scanner provides a score and actionable recommendations to enhance your resume's ATS compatibility. When to use a curriculum vitae. You use those during applications for academic and research fields, and those are typically used in academia, medicine, and scientific fields. And then you can also use it when you need detailed information. CVs provide more in-depth information on education, research experience, and publications. So the key takeaways, an ATS-friendly resume is crucial for getting noticed by employers. You want to optimize your resume with relevant keywords and follow best practices for formatting and presentation. And then you want to utilize tools like JobScan's Resume Scanner and Builder to enhance your resume's effectiveness. By following these guidelines, you can significantly increase your chances of passing the initial ATS screening and landing an interview. So again, this week's career tip of the week is how to create an ATS-friendly resume in 2025. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosina. I read somewhere this week that only 60 to 80% of resumes get through the ATS. 60 to 80% are filtered out automatically based on keywords. So this is very, very good advice. Make sure that you use JobScan, hired.dev. If you're a coder, it's HYRD.dev, to analyze the job description against your resume. To make sure that you're north of 60, 70% in terms of keyword match. And if not, update your resume accordingly. All right. So these tips of the week are uploaded to the careerusa.org website. As you can see, it's very popular, especially this guy. 500 action verbs. Back on September 15th, 372 views. So if you missed it, if you didn't see the email, you missed a meeting and didn't get my follow-up after the meeting, this is a great resource to go back in time and check out all the tips. All right. Today, after the meeting, we're going to go to lunch at Country Burger, my favorite place, right here on Parker, just east, almost to Independence. Please join us. Great way to informal network after the meeting. All right. During our presentation, if you have any questions, please enter them in the chat box, and we will monitor that for Mike during the presentation.
Any questions in the room, please wait till you get the microphone.
Yes. That is the way people online can hear your question. All right, and now to the main event. Mike, thank you again for joining us. Mike is an entrepreneur, licensed private investigator, HR consultant, and registered yoga teacher. He is also president of Imperative, a background investigations and due diligence firm. He is also the state director-elect for Texas SHRM, and each week he hosts the Good Morning HR podcast. Please help me welcome Mike Coffey.
Thank you, and let me get my share going here.
All right, Mike.
Yes.
Can you
hear me?
Yes, I will turn
Perfect.
you up a little bit. And look at you, you're already sharing. Thank you.
Good. Okay, well, it's good to be with y'all again. Walt and I were chatting, and I think this is probably 14 or 15 years that I've made these presentations to this group. Always glad to see familiar faces, especially for those who are just perennial volunteers. And
Hey, Mike,
glad.
you're a little soft. Can you get a
Am I
little
really?
closer to the mic?
That's weird. Okay, let me adjust.
I've got you turned all the way up and it's still a little low.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Turn the lock off. See if I can just. Come on. Trying to unlock it here so I can increase the volume, but it's doesn't want to work for me. Here we go. There we go. That's as loud as it'll go.
Hey, you're
Is that
coming
better?
in loud, clear. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
Okay, so again, it's good to be back after, I've been here every year, I think, for well over a dozen years, and glad to help. I am a career HR guy who had an HR consulting practice, and then actually 26 years ago this month, to take care of one client's needs, was a nationwide financial services company. We got into the background investigations company. Most of our clients are really risk averse, privately held clients who have either been burned because by hiring the wrong person without knowing everything they needed to know, or they're just naturally risk averse. And so most of our clients are small to medium sized businesses. When they use this for employment background checks, but also due diligence for all kinds of other things like vendor acceptance, client acceptance kind of projects, making sure private equity clients use us to make sure that they know who they're investing in, that the companies, the principals of the companies they're working with are right. So basically, if there are people involved, there's some risk involved, and we just help mitigate that risk. So, but we're here today to talk about employment background checks and what you as job seekers need to understand. I think background checks continue to give a lot of job seekers liver quiver. It makes you a little nervous because you're not sure exactly what they're going to be searching and what may show up, and people are always concerned about incorrect information, which unfortunately I've been in the industry 26 years and worked with them for 10 years well before that as a frontline HR person, and I can tell you there are a lot of really inexpensive background check companies out there. And the larger the company, the more likely they're using those, and the more likely there is to be an error in the background check. So we'll walk through some of your rights under those, and just best practices around preparing for the background check and moving through that process. When we talk about background checks, the first thing that people generally talk about is criminal backgrounds, concerns about somebody's criminal history or something like that. And I always feel like I need to start any conversation around that to say that we're big supporters of second chance hiring. We work with our clients to, rather than just say, well, they've got some criminal history, so we're going to eliminate them. And I'll tell you, it's extremely rare. I speak to 15 or more conferences a year on these kind of issues. And it's almost never do I talk to an employer who at least admits that they automatically throw anybody with any criminal history out, because quite honestly, they'd be self-defeating. Employers want to find the best talent available and with the lowest risk available, but they're not, it would make it harder for them to hire good people if, something that somebody did 15 years ago that was minor and unrelated to the job, we're going to eliminate them. So the goal is for employers, and what they want to do is make a fair and well-informed hiring decision, and they want to comply with the law. So the idea that employers are actively out to get you and make your life harder because of something in your past, whether it's a critical error in judgment or an employment situation that didn't go your way or anything, isn't fair to the employers. And there are people who kind of profit from selling some of that fear. But hopefully, by the time you're done today, you'll have an idea how to approach those situations with less fear. I will say the first thing that you want to do is make sure there are no surprises. This is my number one rule for serious job candidates. If there's something that you think the employer may learn, either because of your criminal background, something out there, even if they don't ask, or you think there's a previous employer who may throw you under the bus or any of those things, you don't want that information coming to the employer first through a third party, whether it's that previous employer talking to that hiring manager directly or the background screening company telling them about a criminal history or something like that. You want to be able to present that information and place it in the correct context initially. And so even if the employer doesn't ask about some of the things we talk about today, if you think it's going to come up at some point, my advice is you should be the one who presents it to the employer, puts it in your context, and make sure that they understand where you're coming from on it. Because as soon as something comes up, it is human nature for people to think, okay, well, they were trying to hide that from me, even though the employer did never ask. So, make sure that when they start the background check process, whether they're going through the third party or they're picking up the phone and calling employers directly, there's no surprises out there that you're aware of that may surprise an employer. And I will also say, the recruiters, talent acquisition folks who are working with you, this goes double for them because they lose credibility when they go to a hiring manager and say, here's your best candidate. And then something pops up through after the interview process has gone through that causes that hiring manager to question maybe your credibility, but they're also going to question that recruiter, that talent acquisition specialist's judgment and ability to do that job, because there's this idea that they should have known. And so make it better for everybody. Make sure that recruiter is on your side, because even if you don't get that job, that recruiter may know the next role that's available and be able to connect you to that. The number one situation that comes up in so many, and I've worked with some reentry groups that help former offenders find meaningful work, and so many of them, before I got involved, were telling people with criminal history, when you're presented with a criminal history question, don't answer yes or no or whatever their question is, just write "will discuss." The employers answer very often, and this is what the consulting I give to clients, so I'm telling you directly, is when you write "will discuss," the answer is going to be no, we won't, because that is you telling the employer you're going to decide right up front what they need to know, what they don't. You're not going to necessarily follow their processes. And that's even if the criminal history that you want to present in your own context isn't directly related to the job, you're still giving that employer insight that at least they think is insight into how you're going to perform in the role. You're going to decide when you need to follow company policies, or how you massage or manage situations when you're asked to do something as simple as just tell me about your history, reason for termination, criminal history, or whatever those are. We'll discuss is not the right answer. So let's talk about the criminal history question. My response is when you get the employment application, and here in Texas, and in most of the country still, employers can include the criminal history inquiry right up front on the employment application. Now, there are places like California, New York, and a few others. Austin is the one place in Texas you can't, where employers can't ask the criminal history question at the employment application stage. And if, depending on the law, it could be, they could ask it at the interview, after they've completed the interview, or after they made an offer for the position. In New York, they can't do it till they've completed the entire rest of the employment background check. So checking employment and education claims, all the driving history, all those other things. And then they can ask about criminal history and maybe run a background check for criminal history. But in Texas, pew, we can ask right up front. And so when you're doing the employment application, answer the question that's asked. So the question may be, have you been convicted of a felony in the last 7 years? This is a horrible question. This is not the question I would ever ask my clients want my clients to ask, because it misses too much that may be relevant. But if you've got 3 misdemeanors in the last 7 years, and you're presented with, have you been convicted of a felony in the last 7 years? You can honestly answer, no, you have not been convicted of a felony in the last 7 years. And then you go through these other questions. This last one is along the lines of the ones we suggest our clients consider, and it's the most thorough question available. Just basically tell us about everything that, we're going to ask everything, for everything that we can legally consider as employers. And in that case, you're going to have to tell them about those misdemeanors, those cases 20 years old or whatever else. So, and the reason this is important is because, again, even if the information that's in your history isn't relevant to the job, when falsifying the employment application is always a credible reason to eliminate you from consideration. I mean, you lied to them. And my mantra to clients all the time is, if they lie to you coming in the door, it's not reasonable to expect their behavior to change after you hire them. So answer that question directly and fully within the parameters of the question. And whether it's a criminal history question or employment, previous employment reasons, give a true explanation of the circumstances and don't play the blame game. Especially, we see applicants who will give additional information around termination. And rather than saying something to the effect of, on occasion, you've got 2 people who try to work together and they can't, they just see things differently. And, that was the case I found in. I loved the work, and my boss and I tried to work it out, and we couldn't. And she was the boss, and so I was the one who had to leave. And that's how it laid out. That's a lot more positive than, my boss was a monster, and I hated every minute I worked there, and she was so unfair. That's just, you're projecting to the employer in that case. This is not somebody who takes responsibility for their piece of any circumstance. On the criminal history, make sure you're getting certified copies. Know the answers to your criminal history information. When did it happen? What were the dates what was the date the case was filed? What was the date of the disposition of the case? If you served deferred adjudication or probation, when was that released? Have all that information ready to answer the question, the criminal history question, if it asks for that level of detail, which hopefully they do, or be ready to have that conversation with the employer. If it's something that is truly sounds a lot worse than it really is, the example you hear a lot is somebody who's got some sort of sexual offense, public indecency, or something like that, and then they often say, "Well, I was." I was out with my friends, and a police officer caught me in the alley using the restroom, and they got me for public indecency. Now, I can tell you that I've heard that story dozens of times over the years, and never has it in the times that we've gone and pulled the court copies and actually found out what happened. That wasn't the circumstance. But make sure that if you've got something that looks hairier than it really is, that you have copies of those documents that you can present to the employer to explain to the circumstance, so you're ready to tell your side of the story. Always have what you learned from that experience, okay? Because what you want to demonstrate is that you're not the person who made these critical errors and judgments, that this is not reflective of how you operate today, or maybe this is just one critical error and judgment, and you don't have a pattern of this. So be ready to tell your whole story and what you learned from the experience, and what's your life decision since that incident. point to is the kind of person you are now. So you can tell that story in a positive manner. What are employers concerned about? They're concerned primarily about the nature of the offense. What was it alleged that you engaged in, and how reasonable is it to believe you engaged in that conduct? And how does that behavior relate to the job you're being considered for? How much time has passed since that offense? So did we, is this a, we're a very security sensitive organization. We're really concerned about theft or things like that, any kind of dishonesty. But you've got a theft by check case from 15 years ago. That's, most employers aren't going to say that one case in and of itself is going to eliminate or really be a concern for an employer that much later. Now, more serious offenses, depending on the nature of the offense and the job, maybe even 15, 20 years ago, may still be concerned. You can imagine a sexual offense, and somebody's going to work with vulnerable populations in a caregiver kind of role, then even something 15, 20 years ago may still be relevant to an employer's consideration. And the employer wants to look at the entire applicant, the total applicant. Your criminal history is one piece of you. It's not your whole story for any of us, except for, if you're Ted Bundy, then your whole, your criminal history is all that matters. But for most of us, it's one piece of the whole story. So employers want to understand what skills and experience do you bring and offer that we can compare that to the rest of the applicant pool. And we'll look at the potential risk suggested, if there is any, by your criminal history. And then we'll evaluate all of that. And then if some employers, depending on the role, have regulations that they have to comply with, or they have to have their employees bonded in certain roles, and the insurance companies or the regulators may have limitations on who they can put in those roles. So when we're talking about reasons for termination or separation, first thing I would want to know is ask your previous employer or HR at your previous employer, so your previous supervisor or HR, what are they, if you get a call for a reference, what are you going to say? Find out from HR what their policy is. A lot of HR departments, most HR departments especially in medium to larger organizations, only provide dates of employment, title. Many of them will still verify wages, especially with signed releases from the applicant. And so they're verifying pretty limited stuff. Often, probably about 60% of the time, we get eligibility for rehire if the employer makes those decisions. And we do get probably 30 or 40% of the time some information around the reason for the actual termination. But you want to know before going into it what the employer is going to say. And just assume that your prospective employer is going to talk to your supervisor. Some do, some don't. Some of them just go to HR and verify the information. Some of them have us do that. Some employers have us go reach out to people who are former supervisors, things like that, and get more performance-related information. And then just, again, the no blame game, answer the question fully, but be really professional about it. That way, if the hiring manager, your former supervisor does throw you under the bus about performance or whatever else, you've told your story, and maybe it makes them look bad and gives that employer some insight into what you told them. And now this other party is verifying that may well have been true just because of the way they responded. And always be willing to, especially if you're dealing with a paper employment application, or even an email, if there's not room in an online application to give that information, to provide that additional context to an employer as quite honestly, as early as in the process as you can.
Mike, if I could ask
Yes.
a comment or mention a comment. Our company may have a neutral reference policy, but that doesn't mean that everyone follows it.
That's true. That's why I think you always ought to ask a supervisor what they're going to, a former supervisor, what they're going to say. So you at least have some idea. And just the fact of asking may well make them think twice before they throw, because they're gonna, rarely are they gonna say, no, I'm gonna tell them you're a horrible person. But what they may well do is think twice about it before they actually say that, since you did ask, and it does kind of put them on the spot. None of us want to see ourselves as as liars. That cognitive dissonance sometimes will help us behave better. But it's true. When you getting those frontline supervisors to do to follow company policy can be a challenge. And the other thing that can happen, and I've seen employers do this, and certainly it's something we offer, looking for other references, developing references, because a lot of employers ask for personal references or professional references and actual people. And those are always a challenge because, first of all, they're only going to be people, it's kind of an intelligence test. Is the person smart enough just to list 3 people who will say nice things about them? But beyond that, how do you know that a person even works for that company or really was this person's supervisor? We see a lot of people fraudulently claiming people, and then when we do some research, it turns out that the phone number we're calling is the applicant's phone number, or the person, it's not the name associated with the phone number isn't the person that we thought we were talking to, and actually it belongs to somebody with the applicant's last name or uses the same address as the applicant. So people are kind of scammy. So personal references, professional references are questionable. But some employers will go to LinkedIn and find people who they think probably worked alongside you, and even reach out to them and talk to them to get details. Now, these are usually for executive level roles. They really want to do their due diligence. I mean, for an analyst in the accounting department, they may not do that level of detail. So my whole argument is that the interview is the time for you to lay your cards on the table. Be really forthcoming about any issues that may come up, so that, again, there are no surprises once you're moving through the background check process. So we're talking about the screening process. Basically, the background check should have no surprises, and so it should just be a lie detector test. Did the applicant tell me the truth about their job history, their successes in those and in those roles, things like that? So that's what this process is about. I see the note there. Is it advisable to remove your previous employer from your resume and use the term consultant instead? So I think what you're asking me is it advisable to lie? And it never is. If you don't want that previous employer on your history, there's still a good chance it's going to show up. Many employers use services like the Work Number, which is run by Equifax, to do their employment verification responses on their behalf. And it's not just employment verifications for previous employment or for potential employers, but like lending services, consumer loans, things like that, mortgages where they need to verify income. This company, the Work Number, and there's other services out there too, will verify that on behalf. So because your previous employer, they don't want all those phone calls coming to HR for somebody to answer the questions. And so they just provide all their data on a weekly basis or more or less often to these database companies. And then the employer, when they go to verify, when, potential, previous employment, that HR department just says, no, you got to go to the Work Number. So the employer logs into the Work Number, and then your entire everything that's ever been reported on you will show up in the Work Number. And there are plenty of employers who say, we told them to list all employers in the last 10 years on the application process, and they left this one off. That's falsifying their application. And so my advice is not to do that. And we'll talk, Margaret, about that a little bit. Margaret asked, how can you know what a previous employer says when contacted? You can't, if it's on your background check, yes, it'll show up and you'll get a copy of it, and you can request a copy of it, and we'll talk about that. If it's just that former supervisor talking to your prospective employer directly one-to-one, there's probably no way you'll ever know that. Because there's no disclosure requirements when the information doesn't come through a third party like my company or somebody like that. So let's move on here. So the first thing that's going to start in a background check is generally identity, some sort of identity verification or corroboration, making sure that the person the information you're giving as an applicant about who you are really matches. So we're making sure that name, that date of birth, and that social security number you provided matches the information in big data, credit bureau files, driver's license files, things like that. So we're trying to corroborate that the identity information you're providing matches. Now with remote work, and if you haven't seen it yet, go Google North Korean workforce scam. And North Korea is just the most notable one, but there's a lot of identity theft going on out there where people were posting fake jobs as though they were big companies. They're posting fake jobs online. They're doing even fake interviews, getting applicants excited and say, hey, we want to move forward. Here's our new hire paperwork. Collect your name, date of birth, social security number, address, all this information. And then they just disappear on you. And what happens is then they take all your identity information, including your employment history and everything, and go apply for jobs. And North Korea has been doing this since, I think the earliest one they found is 2016. And then they're actually taking those jobs and working remote from North Korea using VPNs and other things, and then either stealing data from employers or just violating the sanctions against North Korea for hard currency coming, U.S. currency coming into North Korea, and finding ways to actually earn the money, and the employers have no clue who they're actually working for. And then in other cases, it's just straight scammers. As soon as they get the company laptop, they start downloading all kinds of malware and other things to hack into the company systems. So employers are getting more and more savvy. In fact, next week I'm speaking at a conference just about remote worker fraud and how to prevent it. So employers need to verify that you are who you say you are, and that at least it used to be just, before all this identity theft, we could just rely basically that big data corroborated. Most of the time we still can, that, this name, date of birth, and social really belong to the same person. So applicants do lie about that. Sometimes because they're not eligible to work in the US, other times because maybe they have child support payments and they're trying to avoid the attorney general reporting, because employers are supposed to report to the state attorney general when they hire somebody, so that the attorney general can turn around and go grab their, if that person has wage withholding orders for child support, the attorney general can go leverage against that. But some people just flat try to make up other information so that they can avoid that. And this process also gives us a good address history. So every place that you've lived in the last 7 to 10 to 15 years, if anybody knows where you've been, it's the people you owe money to. They report that to the credit bureaus, and then those addresses are all populated in these databases. So it tells us where to go do research. So we talked about criminal background. About 1 in 4 adults in the U.S. have been arrested for a felony in the U.S. according to the FBI. There aren't really good numbers about statistics nationwide about all criminal convictions, but our guess is that there's taking multiple studies and looking at our own data, there's probably 70 to 80 million Americans who have some sort of criminal history. And employers are not trying to not hire them at all. They're trying to make well-informed decisions about that information. So we've talked quite a bit about the criminal background check piece. And let's go through some of the other things that are common in background checks. Verifications and references. We kind of talked about that. Employers will try to contact HR or payroll directly and verify your employment claims around dates of hire. The other thing we see a lot that really turns employers off, if you've been unemployed for 9 months or a year and a half, and you change your date of termination to later, so it looks like you weren't unemployed so long, you think that helps you. But if an employer verifies that, they're just going to see that you lied to them. And so that's probably, I always advise applicants not to fudge the truth, because that is just signaling to the employer that you've demonstrated right up front that you're dishonest. They're going to also try to verify your education claims, and we see more people lying about their education history than we see lying about their criminal history. There are a lot of people out there claiming college degrees that they don't have. Maybe they didn't finish the degree. Maybe they never even attended the school. Those are very easy to verify. And it's amazing to me still how many employers don't verify that. But I wouldn't put it on there, even if it's, if you lied about it, again, that's going to remove you from directly talking to the, it's going to eliminate you from being considered for the job.
Mike,
Yes.
just a comment, a job or two ago, I had a background check that was so thorough, they noticed that, in one case, the end date was 2 months off on my LinkedIn from my resume.
And they were just looking at the LinkedIn and the resume. They were comparing those two. That's interesting.
100%, but because one was 2 months off, and the reason for that is, I think when I was filling out one, I put the actual end date and the other one, the end of the severance.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's always a question. Jody just asked the same question. Is termination date the same as severance end date? You need to talk to the employer and find that out. Generally, what they're going to show is your term date in the system is the last day you worked. But some employers basically keep you on the books. It's not best practice, but they'll keep you on the books as an employee for 60 days or whatever your servants is, and continue to process payroll and pay you out that way. So I would just ask the HR department, what are you recording as my termination date? Because I want to be honest with my prospective employers. I don't want any red flags. And so I would just be, I would confirm that information. That's really your job as the applicant to do that, and to have that information. So I would verify that directly with a previous employer. Employers are using driving history. Again, it's in addition to just making sure somebody operates a motor vehicle safely. If the job involves operating a motor vehicle or operating heavy or dangerous equipment, they're definitely wanting to see their driving history. But beyond that, the other thing the driving history does is it gives you insight into, it's another verification that the person's name, date of birth, and address that they provided matches a government record real time. And so it just means you're, that you really are Mike Coffey, born, on May 25th, a long time ago. And so that's another way. So even if you don't drive in the role, many employers will run a driving history. Another thing, even if somebody isn't going to be driving in the course of their job, when you see a driver's license that's suspended for some reason, there's a red flag. Something else is going on here. We want to understand why. And sometimes it's simply because you've got outstanding tickets in other jurisdictions. You just need to go take care of those before you start applying for jobs. But employers will look for those things for an invalid or suspended license and want to understand what's going on. It's just another way to catch things that may be of concern. So we'll talk about credit. A lot of employers ask, or a lot of employees are concerned. Look,
Hey,
I've been
Mike?
Yes.
On that last slide, sorry.
Yeah.
Give me a second to put the mic back on. If you had a traffic accident and the police report was not filled out, would that show up on your driving record?
No, the only thing that shows in Texas, now every state's a little different, but in most states, the only thing that show up are infractions where the person was found guilty. So in Texas, you'll have, if you get a ticket, it doesn't show up on your driving history until after and Texas only shows convictions. So if you do a deferred adjudication on a traffic ticket and you serve, your 6 months without getting another ticket and they dismiss the case, that won't even show up on your driving history in Texas unless you're a commercial motor vehicle driver. What employers are going to see are convictions.
What if you take a defensive driving course?
Typically that's that's part of a deferred adjudication process. And so if you don't end up with a conviction, it's not going to show up.
Good to know. Thank you.
So credit, first of all, everybody is concerned. I mean, I understand why. If you're unemployed for, a year and a half, it's going to impact you financially. And so that's always a concern for applicants. First of all, employers don't get a credit score. I see it all the time in news articles around this issue. And, employers are using your credit score. No, they're not, because they don't get credit scores. If they're ordering their credit reports legally, they don't. Credit scores have nothing to do with employment. That's somebody's ability to pay back a debt, and it's an evaluation tool for that. Their FICO score. So that's not a something that employers can even see. What they're going to see is all your credit, and they're going to see everything else on your credit report, basically all your credit lines, your payment history for all your accounts. And but most employers aren't looking at credit. They're only primarily looking at credit where somebody's going to have fiduciary responsibility, managing the company or the client's accounts, for instance, where they have access maybe to credit cards or other company accounts, or in cases where they have access to personally identifiable or really sensitive information. Sometimes they'll run credit just to make sure somebody's not showing really poor judgment in other areas of their life. Now, when I spend more time, when clients talk about credit, talking them out of credit than suggesting they do run credit. But certainly we have clients who do run credit on every candidate, financial services firms, things like that. But then you've got to spend the time, and I spend the time with clients helping them understand what the information really means. So if I know somebody's been unemployed for a year, and so now they're slow paying on debts, that makes sense, right? That doesn't tell me anything about their personal financial management. Or it tells me a lot less than if they've been fully employed and making $225,000 a year and they're still over, still making late payments, and they're over, they've bought they've got 3 car payments and they keep buying things that are, clearly outside of their ability to pay it back. Then maybe that tells me something about the fiduciary responsibility. Maybe I don't want them making decisions on behalf of the company. So that's primarily where I see credit, but it's used a lot less than it was when we started the company 26 years ago. And in some places, New York State's a great example where it's almost impossible to use it for most roles. No laws in Texas limiting it, but most employers really see that they just don't want to get involved in a lot of icky conversations with people about why their credit's bad. Because, as soon as you see a negative credit and you get a credit report and it shows somebody's got a lot of medical collections. Okay, well, my advice to clients always is when you see medical collections, ignore them. You don't want to know that this person has had illness. You don't want to know that they've got family members who've had illness that have been really expensive to treat or to deal with. You don't want to know it, so don't pursue it. But now you've got it in black and white on this person's credit report, and so look at the rest of their report and the rest of their history apart from that and see what it tells you. For some positions, employers look at civil litigation. And these are typically C-level positions again, or really sensitive positions where they've got access. You've got really, access to really proprietary information that is really, usually competitive information. We see it sometimes for technical positions where somebody's a coder or they're working with some technology that's, particularly, I guess, cutting edge. And they want to know who this person sued, who has sued them, how they conducted their business generally previously, to make sure that we know who we're basically getting in bed with her and who we're putting into positions of trust here. But most employers are not doing that. And then the other one everybody wants to talk about is social media. Back when, 30 plus years ago when I was in college, maybe we'd take pictures at a few parties and somebody, I've probably got people from college who have a shoebox in their closet full of pictures of me in college at parties, and I hope their house burns down. Because I don't want those out there necessarily. But today, everything's online, right? And employers are looking at social media more and more. I've got several presentations I make to employers about how to do that appropriately. The best way to do it is to go through a third party who's not part of the hiring decision and have them only return things that seem like they are advocating for illegal behavior or demonstrations of threatening or coercive behavior, things like that. But my advice to candidates is clean up your social media. And if you've got a bunch of wacko friends who are posting crazy stuff that you get tagged in, just make your social media go private. Don't make it accessible to the public, to the whole world. And then employers aren't going to see it in most cases. But clean it up. But there are reasons that employers have legitimate interest in that. It's not purient. They're not trying to, again, identify you just because they're looking for a reason not to hire you. But if you look at after January 6th, 4 years ago, uh, employers had legitimate concerns about some of their employees who were participated in the January 6th riot at the Capitol. If this is an attorney who's working in my law firm and he's posting stuff on social media that makes the firm look bad, even if it's not directly relevant to what we do, I don't want that, right? And so those are the kind of things employers are often looking for. I'll give you another example. Um, we've got a client that is a forensic lab. And so their scientists are testifying in court cases all the time about all kinds of issues. And one of the things that they look for in their social media searches are anything that are overtly pro or overtly negative about the criminal justice system or law enforcement. Because those people who have to sit on a stand and testify, the first thing you can do to impeach a witness is to go look at their social media. And I promise you, plaintiffs' lawyers and defense lawyers are doing that because we do it for them. And, so I can't hire somebody who's going to be an expert witness in a case and supposed to be impartial if they've got all this public information out there that suggests that they're not impartial. And then there's always the crazy stuff. Jared Loeffner here, who was the wacko who shot Congresswoman Gabby Giffords and that wasn't a workplace shooting, but within hours of that shooting, news media had all of his crazy YouTube videos and all these other social media things that he had posted out there that showed what a nut he was. If this had been a workplace shooting, the employers would have been just nailed to the wall about, okay, this is publicly accessible. It's right there for you to know. And you didn't even bother checking it to protect your employees. And so this is why employers are looking for, both professional competence and potential red flags in what people post on social media. So let's talk about the Fair Credit Reporting Act. It's the federal law that was passed in the early 1970s, back at a time when credit reports, the three credit report bureaus were really the only ones who were really delivering background checks. And it was basically a credit report is what all you really got. Some database information about your credit behavior and maybe some public records like bankruptcies. Well, ignore the word credit. This law applies to consumer reports. And under the law, a consumer report is anytime an employer buys information from a third party like me about you as an applicant or an employee. So that's a consumer report. And so even if there's no credit report involved, the Fair Credit Reporting Act applies. And so what can you include in a consumer report under the Fair Credit Reporting Act? Basically, anything within the last 7 years is fully reportable. Criminal cases are reportable forever if it's a conviction. So we can tell an employer about a conviction forever. Now, there are states that have some limits, California being one, on what what employers can consider or what I can give an employer. But most states don't have that, and certainly Texas doesn't. So criminal convictions are reportable forever under the federal law. Non-conviction cases, criminal cases like dismissed case would be an example. If somebody was charged with a crime and it was ultimately dismissed, I can only report those for up to 7 years. 7 years and 1 day ago, I can't report it. Civil cases are only reportable for 7 years. Negative employment history is only reportable for 7 years, unless the person, and in all of these cases, the 7-year limit only kicks in if the person is going to make less than $75,000 a year. If you're going to make more than 75,000, there are no limits on what can be reported. And so that's kind of the general rules about how things can go forward. Now, you do need to know that under the federal law, and this doesn't apply under state laws, Texas doesn't have really one, but criminal cases ending in a deferred adjudication are considered under federal law the same as a conviction. I mean, like when you go to apply for some sort of federal license, they consider deferred adjudications like criminal convictions. Firearms, they consider firearm licenses, or the firearm background check if you go to buy a firearm, a deferred adjudication, because you pled guilty. So you've accepted responsibility for the offense. When you go into deferred adjudication, you plead no contest or guilty to the offense. And then at the end of your probation, the case is dismissed. But the underlying concern of the employer and the federal government and their licensing stuff is that what behavior is it reasonable to believe you engaged in? And so if you pled guilty or served or pled no contest and served probation, under federal law, they're going to consider that the same as a conviction. So know that. Now, when the employer asks you, have you been convicted? I would say no, if it was just deferred, but know that offense may show up on the background check. Even if it was more than 7 years ago, if you had a deferred adjudication. So I would still advise you to be honest with the employer at the interview point. When you're at the interview, say, hey, I really feel like this is a great position. I think I would really fit well with it. And there's one thing you need to know about. And so this will show up. This is something, maybe in deferred adjudication, you can even say, and I think employers accept, this is something that happened 9 years ago. I'm not the person that I am now, but also they gave me deferred because they couldn't really prove the case. And, but my lawyer, and I didn't, maybe you even say I didn't engage in that, but my lawyer told me this was the best way to get out of it, not risk a conviction or not spend $30,000 defending a criminal case, was to plead guilty and accept the probation terms, which I completed without any issues and demonstrate that. Those are the kind of things I recommend that you can, kind of approach that, but don't let those be surprises for the employer. And like I said, criminal convictions are reportable forever. They don't go away. And if you're making more than $75,000 a year, there's a chance that a lot of information that would be otherwise limited will be on your report much later than 7 years. So what employers have to do when they order a background check? The first thing is they have to disclose to you as, the applicant or the employee that they're going to procure a consumer report, a background check on you, and they have to get your written authorization. And there may be small employers out there who are going to some free online website database where you can go check out your match.com date and check their criminal history out or something that some small employers are doing, but most employers are going through legitimate background screening companies to do the background checks, and they're following this law. So I think there's a lot less worry than a lot of applicants have that the employers are running background checks, criminal histories on them without getting their authorization. And so I think in most cases, that's really what's going on. And as I said earlier, some states do have limitations on what you can consider based on what an employer can consider, or that a background screening company can report to an employer. And so you need to know the rules in your state. But if you're applying for a job in Texas, there aren't any regulations that are in effect beyond the federal law. And then the employer gets the background check back. And let's say there's something that based on the background check, the employer thinks, yeah, I may well have to take an adverse employment decision based on this. I may not hire this person. I may offer them a different role, may offer them less money. We see that sometimes where somebody claims to have, 7 years of experience in some kind of role. And then when we do the employment verification, we find out that in fact, they were only in that specific technical role for a year and a half, and then they were in a completely different role for the previous 6 or 7 years. And so the employer is going to pay them less based on experience. So any of those would be an adverse. If you're going to get paid less, certainly that's an adverse decision as far as you're concerned. So before they take an action based on the background check, the employer has to give you a copy of the background check and a summary of your rights under the law, which is a document prescribed by the federal government. And you should always get that. So if the employer ran a background check and then they say, well, based on your background check, we can't hire you, but we can't tell you what it is or something like that, because I still on occasion come across employers who have the idea that they don't have to, or even that they shouldn't share that information with the background screening company, or with the consumer or the applicant. So that's you have a right to that, and you should get that every time and look at it carefully and make sure the information is accurate. You have the right to dispute the accuracy of the information. And generally, the expectation is that employers give you at least some time to have a conversation with the background screening company about the accuracy of the information. Under the law, the background check company has 30 days to reinvestigate the disputed information. But in fact, if they're working with a good background screening company, they'll make exceedingly few mistakes, they'll be able to correct them very quickly. I hear stories all the time about things that took 30 days to get resolved when it was something really simple from other companies. So, but you've got a right to dispute it directly with the background screening company. Now, I would always tell the employer, hey, this isn't accurate. Whatever's not accurate, and I am disputing it to the background screening company. And if you dispute it through a phone call or I would follow up with an email to them and copy the employer so that the employer's got documentation that you really are disputing the accuracy of it. The employer doesn't have to hold that job open for you while you dispute it, but many will. If you're a really strong candidate, they don't want to lose a good candidate because of something that's incorrect in the report. And identity theft does happen in background checks. This is directly from our own files. A number of years ago, we ran a background check on someone, and one of my team came to me and said, "Hey, this guy we verified his employment, and he's worked here in Fort Worth consistently for the last 25 years, but we found these criminal history on him in other locations where he actually served some jail time. And so something just doesn't seem right here." And we just had his name, date of birth, and the criminal history information. And so okay, so that's a red flag. So we decided before we report this information to our client, we're going to do some more digging. And we ordered everything. We ordered copies we did some initial research and found that some other things looked weird and some of the information that we had on the criminal cases. So we ordered copies of the mugshots. And what's funny is this is from 96 and 2001. These are the same guy. He had a rough 6 years there between those 2 years. But and so we got the mugshots. And so then I call in other information from the case files. And I called the client and said, "Hey, so tell me about this guy, this candidate." And it was a really unique name, like Ezekiel Uriah Jones. I mean, it was a name that you weren't going to have multiple people with the same date of birth running around out there. And he said, "Oh yeah, well he's a great social worker. He's been in the community. He's on these boards. He's all this." And I said, "Well, describe him. Have you met him?" "Yeah." "Describe him physically." "Well, he's about a 6'1" black guy. And so, I'm looking at the mugshot. I'm like, oh, okay, we got something going on here. And so I call this consumer, because clearly it's not our guy. And I call the consumer or the applicant and say, "Hey, so tell me I've got these cases that clearly aren't you. Are you aware they're out there? And he goes, no, I'm not. But it explains why anytime I get a traffic ticket or anything like that, it's delayed forever. It takes forever for them to process my information in the system, and uh, my and the Berkeley, South Carolina thing makes sense because when I was in the military, my identity was stolen, and somebody opened a bank account, wrote a lot of checks under my name. It took me forever to clean it all up. Well, what happened, I think, is that this guy, this uh, the guy in the mugshots, stole the this applicant's information and created an identity on him. And then every time he gets booked in, he got booked in for criminal records. At least the first time, he gave that information. Maybe he had a fake ID with the name on it or whatever. And from that point on, anytime his fingerprints got run, this other guy's identity information came up. And so this has been happened so often that Texas, probably 10 or 12 years ago, had in the legislative session had to pass a special law because there wasn't a way to change that. When somebody was a victim of identity theft in criminal records, there wasn't a way to change the name and date of birth and stuff on those records. And so they had to pass a law just so they could get that done. So most of the time, 99% of the time, when an applicant says it's not me, it really is them. But I'm always encouraging employers to be careful and give the applicant the benefit of the doubt and let us reinvestigate it. And then once the investigation's over, or that employer just decides to move forward and take the adverse employment action, they have to give you another notice explaining that they took the action and how to contact us if you want to punch somebody in the nose, those kind of things. And so that information is, that's where the screening process really ends. If they've taken an adverse employment action, you should get a final notice that this is what they've done. This is all required by the law. And I know we got started late, so it's 11:10, but if you have any questions, I'd be glad to jump in and try to answer them for you.
I have a question, Mike, or maybe two of them. I'm believing that a lot of corporations get a negative background investigation result and just tell you that they've offered it to somebody else. They don't even give you the information about the results of it. Is that true?
I don't think it's true, and I'll tell you why is because 20 years ago, a bunch of plaintiff lawyers discovered this law, and they were suing employers left and right. Now, what you see that, and now we see very few cases around that. What we see primarily are cases where the employer didn't follow all the details. Maybe they gave a copy of the report and they didn't give the summary of rights, or they didn't have the right things in their cover letters and things like that. Those are mostly the cases we see now against employers. So employers, I think, mostly get it. Plus, the screening companies started getting dragged into those lawsuits, and so because of that, a lot of employers, the screening companies, we're making sure we're educating the employers and holding them accountable, and even doing audits of to make sure that, hey, you've got all these people with criminal histories. Did you hire? Who did you hire here? Did you send them the adverse action stuff? Because they send those through our system. So our system will automatically email it to the applicant and all of that. So we can see all the activity they've done. So I still see where I see the advice is on Reddit or on some of the HR Facebook groups or job seeker groups, things like that, advice to employers. People say, yeah, just tell them they weren't a good fit and don't give them that. I see that advice, but I think those are probably very small employers who aren't very sophisticated where you'd ever see that.
Yeah, I think a lot of applications have, by signing this, you give us authorization to do a background investigation.
Right.
I don't think application, so we don't know if they may do them or not. Well, I guess.
Yeah, and a lot of times those authorizations, those authorization documents will tell you who the background screening company is. And you have a right to come back to the background screening company and ask for a copy of any reports that they've delivered on you. And so that's another way to act. Just like you can access your credit report annually for free from each of the credit bureaus, you have the same right to come to an employment-related background investigations company and ask for a copy of any reports they've delivered and to whom they delivered those reports. And again, the plaintiff lawyers have discovered that, and so I think that's the reason that these things are not as, that advice isn't followed from employers like they used to be.
My second question is, I'd like to meet whoever does your slides. I need some help on some of my things.
Those are me. Those are me and AI creating some of the images. So yeah.
They're great. Anyone else have any questions? Yeah, we got one in the room. Let me get the microphone to him.
I have a brief question. I'm a former city council member in my town. This is about 20 years ago or 15 years ago. A group of citizens took us to ethics hearings for the mayor and more than half of our city council. Nothing came of it. It was completely ruled
Right.
no case or anything else. Do I have to worry about that? Because nothing happened. I was on city council and didn't impact our ability to serve. We didn't get tossed out, nothing else. And in fact, there's things that showed they had no case. So I don't, do I even have to worry about that issue? I'm sorry, but I served as a city
Probably,
council member.
right. Yeah. No good deed goes unpunished. Probably not, but I would be ready for it. At least I would have, because the only way it's going to show up on the background check is in a social media search of some sort. Social media, or just, when I say social media, I'm talking about a web search, because we do hit some databases of news articles and other stuff. So if it shows up when you Google your name and your city, or something like that, then it may show up. Either the employer does, just, the hiring manager Googles it, or somebody else Googles it. That's always a possibility. So I would at least have the information from the Texas Ethics Commission or whatever it was, to document what really happened, or find the news articles that talk about when it was all wrapped up and what the summary decisions were, just so you're ready for it if the question comes up. But I don't think something that old would be as likely to show up. And certainly the only way it would show up is from that kind of deep internet search.
Okay, that helps me, because it was just a city ethics board from
Oh, okay. Yeah.
citizens, and they tossed it out after the first meeting. So
Yeah.
I just,
I wouldn't lose a lot of sleep on that one.
okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. But I wanted to encourage everybody, still feel free to serve on boards, run for city council or mayor. It's a good thing to do, and it's helpful for whatever job you do. Thank you.
Hi, Mike. Bill Elster. Good to see you again. It's been a long
Hey,
time.
good to see you.
I've got a three for here. We project managers are really good for questions. The answer is not so much. You were just talking about social media. Number one, can prospective employers require candidates to show them their private social media? That's piggybacking on what you said a while ago.
Yeah.
You want me to hold 2 to 3 for later, or will we give them all to you now?
Well, let me give you that one real quick. That's true. And in Texas, employers aren't prohibited from doing that. In many states, they are. I don't believe that any of our clients are doing that. But certainly in Texas, an employer could do that. Now, if if an employer says, oh, the applicant's given me their social media passwords and stuff, and here it is, we still won't touch it. I don't think any screening company would touch that. Now, that doesn't mean the employer's not going to go back and go through it all. So again, um, you know if you want the job, maybe go clean that information up before you give them that password, and clean up your history. We just had a thing here in Fort Worth where somebody who's an officer for the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce posted on social media about how she hated the stock show and rodeo, and which is a big deal here in Fort Worth, because we are Cowtown, and that got picked up in the media, and you know it's it's embarrassing for the Chamber of Commerce or those kind of folks. And so I can see where some employers may do that. My advice to employers is always just to be more concerned with publicly facing stuff, but in Texas they can do that.
You were talking about FICO scores a while ago. You said they're not seen by employers.
Right.
But they do see full credit reports.
Right.
That seems very backward to me, because to generate a FICO score, all the things that you mentioned that they would look at in your raw credit report have already been taken into account and numericized in a way that either you're a good risk or you're not a good risk. So why is it their business to see everything that's going on in our background?
Well, because the FICO score, and I agree with this reasoning, the FICO score is your ability to pay back a debt. So it's not a measure of your risk, even managing accounts. So, an 825 credit score um, doesn't necessarily give an employer a level of granularity to understand what's going on. They can look at your accounts and say, "Oh, you're consistently paying late," and those kind of things. But FICO is designed strictly for that, and they definitely don't want the credit bureaus and don't want any of their measurements like that trying to be applied to an employment circumstance. I mean, there would be it would be a really, really challenging thing for them to defend the use of the score that way.
From a privacy point of view, it doesn't seem like there's any of their business, all the details going on. If their main concern is, are you likely to steal from us? Which I think is probably the real root cause behind that.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's not a correlate. I mean, the studies out there show that there's really not a correlation between a negative credit history and likelihood of theft. Um, and so, there's not a lot of studies out there, but there was one big one with one of the big accounting firms, uh, large employee data sets over multiple years, and the employees who even had more negative credit history information were no more likely to have been termed because of any kind of dishonesty than any other employee group. So, um, so I don't even tend to mention dishonesty when we're looking at credit reports as much. I'm concerned about just what does it tell you about how this person's managing their financial circumstances, and then getting deeper, being willing to have real conversations with them about the details of why things are negative, which is an icky conversation for employers to have, and a lot of them don't want to, and I definitely get that. And in that case, I tell them, well, maybe you don't want to use credit reports, because I think to make a fully informed decision, you need to at least get the applicant's side of the story.
My own personal belief is all those details are none of their business, as long as you're coming in as an honest person. You've got folks who can attest to that. My third question had to do with FCRA. You said instead of that we should consider the Fair Consumer Reporting Act, which makes sense. Are we able to see those reports ourselves?
Yeah. You can definitely get your own credit report from any of the credit bureaus annually, and I recommend everybody pull one, every 3 or 4 months from each of the bureaus, just to look at your credit report and make sure. You can go to annualcreditreport.com, and all 3 bureaus have gotten together and create a single portal, and you can pull it. And I would pull, they're pretty much the same. There's not a big difference between the 3 bureaus. And so I would pull it from one bureau in January, one in April, and one in the fall, just to get an idea of what's out there, to make sure that no new accounts are showing up. They'll try to sell you other stuff like getting your credit score and stuff. You probably don't need that. What you really need is just to know what the trade line items are. But also, you can go to any background screening company and say, "I'd like a copy of the information you have on file about me." And if they've ever prepared a report on you, they have to give it to you. You can go to Equifax's theworknumber.com, and ask for all the information they have about you. So that's because they're a consumer reporting agency. So they have to give you all the information employers have given them. So you would know exactly, if an employer goes to the work number, what information's in there, and they would pull that, and they would provide that to you. And so even if the report didn't result in an adverse action, they have to provide you a copy of the report for a minimal fee, just, they're basically their time fee. And so it's, we don't even charge for it. And I think most screening companies charge nothing or a very minimal fee, like $5 or something, for it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
This is Peter online. Just for my education and maybe a giggle, does the fact that I'm from far East Texas
Yeah.
make your life easier or harder when you get to check me out?
Well, a lot of employers, especially international employees, don't do their, if somebody's been in the US 4 or 5 years, they're just happy with that. But we do, have clients who'll invest the money to do international searches. Now, no place in the world has open records like the US does. And so when we're in Europe, we're dealing with GDPR and specific national laws about what's available and what's not. Canada is really, has a pretty accessible system, and Mexico ostensibly has a pretty accessible system, but their record keeping is horrible. So we'll often have applicants who admit that. And in Reynosa, I got a DWI 4 years ago, and then we go down to Reynosa and have somebody, there actually go to the court and pull the records, and they can't find the records. So I always have, anytime I'm talking to a client about international records, it's always comes with a caveat that it's challenging. You get what you get, and there's not a lot that can be, done beyond that, because it's, in none of those jurisdictions can you just walk in a courthouse and do the research. You're always talking to a court clerk and handing them a form, and then they're doing whatever they do. Employment verifications are increasingly happening cross-border a lot more than we used to. Education verifications certainly are a lot more common, because we're seeing so much fraud, and so employers are saying, okay, well, they say they were at Cambridge. Well, how do we verify that? Well, we got to go verify it. Just contact that school's
They
registrar.
wouldn't let me in, but I went there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I went to Harvard. Oh, when were you there? It was when my cousin graduated. Yeah, so.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Mike,
I appreciate the
thank you so
presentation.
much for joining us today.
Good.
Glad to.
If I wanted to, find out what's out there, I assume that I could pay you as a client to say, do pull a background investigation on me, then I know what's out there.
Well, depends on what it is, but I think what your criminal history is, and when we do have people come to us and say, look, I had some history 15 years ago when I was strung out on drugs, and I don't even remember all the details. Can you go help me find it? We'll do that. But what we won't do is talk to previous employers on your behalf and pretext them or lie to them that we're potentially talking to, we're actually potentially hiring you or something like that. So we generally won't do anything like that. So the things that are truly out there that may surprise you would be those other things.
If you could just pull the records of what's out there, so that as the candidate, I can go look, so, okay, I know what's out there, I know what you'll see, I know what you'll find, I know what to be prepared for.
As far as the criminal history goes, certainly we would do that. Yeah.
All right. Mike, thank you
Yes.
so much. We appreciate all the information. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
You too. Hopefully, Jeff will be back by the time you come around again.
I hope so. I wish him the very best. I want to see him get better.
All right. Let's finish up real quick.
Jeff will be at lunch today, so we'll tell him.
Good. Tell him I said hello.
Will do. All right. Quick reminder, Jeff's website, careerdfw.org, contains a lot of information for those in the job hunt, and especially useful is the calendar right up here at the top. If you click on that, you can click on a graphical view or an agenda view. This is a graphical view. Here is the agenda view. I recommend that you go there every Sunday night and look at everything that's coming up throughout the week. There's anywhere from 5 to 10 things every single day that you can attend in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And then his other very useful resource is the Career USA YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com, search for the Career USA YouTube channel, click on playlist, and you'll see all the playlists. And this particular meeting is the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. Be sure to click on View Full Playlist, and then you'll get a list of everything that's been recorded for the last 17 years. And a recent one, The Joy of Stress with Loretta, already has 134 views. That was a good one, so check that out. But everything's there. All right, coming up on Tuesday, Patty Bashy has been assisting us running Jeff's LinkedIn Tuesday meeting, always online. And they cycle through 4 different LinkedIn experts, and this coming Tuesday is Ruth Lipsky. There she is. And then there's the what it looks like in the calendar at careerdfw.org right there, online LinkedIn Tuesdays. And then on Wednesday, as we mentioned earlier, the practice interview team meets in this room every Wednesday from 1 to 3. Come check it out. And upcoming, next Friday, we have job search trends for 2025, what you need to know to stay ahead with Elizabeth Lyons. She's awesome. And then as usual, the first Friday of the month, we have open forum. You have questions, we have answers. Always a lively conversation. And then on February 14th, negotiations, closing the deal for what you are worth with Crystal Yates.
Also Valentine's Day.
That is Valentine's Day. What a Valentine's Day gift, to learn how to negotiate more money. And a reminder, we're going to Country Burger for lunch today. All right. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. Mike, thanks again. Fantastic presentation.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks.